convinced, I think we know this, Hillary Clinton would love to see the Senate in Republican hands going into 2016, wouldn't she?
I think a lot of Democrats would. They never say it in public because everybody knows virtually nothing is going to happen over the next 2 years. And Democrats, Hillary Clinton in particular, would love Republicans, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, to actually have to take ownership of some of the dysfunction.
Yes. All right. Welcome back, folks. Joining us now is Newsmax contributor, national affairs columnist for National Review Online, and the author of the great book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. And he has a great new article out as well, The Increasing Desperation of Democrats, the one and only John Fund. Hello, sir.
Hi, Steve.
All right. So let's talk a little. You think that's true? You think that a lot of Democrats, and Hillary especially, would like to see the Republicans take the Senate so they could then campaign against the Republicans for doing nothing?
Well, if you have a poor economy, foreign policy disasters everywhere, and if your president has a popularity rating of 40%, of course you're going to come up with anything.
Right.
Anything will do. The kitchen sink and beyond.
Yeah, I guess. All right, so you talk about in the Obama credibility gap, you write about the polls and where the public is. And the fact of the matter is, I think 19% of the public thinks that we're headed in the right direction. 50-some-odd% think we're headed in the wrong direction. We see indications now. Scott Brown and Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire, they're tied in the polls. In Iowa, an open seat that the Democrats thought that they would securely pick up, they're in a dead heat, statistically speaking, in their latest poll. You have projections of 7 seats at least, and now possibly many more. I don't know if that'll come to fruition. So where are we headed, and how much of a factor is Obama? You have candidate after candidate running away from him, but can they?
You know, other presidents have tried. Richard Nixon tried to escape. Gerald Ford tried to escape. Ronald Reagan tried to escape when he was in a deep recession. Bill Clinton tried to escape in 1994. George Bush tried to escape in 2006. Never happens. A president weighs down his party because people cast blame on the situation in Washington on the people who are in Washington.
Even when the candidates in question put out commercials and say, I'm going to, and there are a bunch of them out there, I'm going to tell President Obama and he can't do that, and he should embrace coal and he's wrong, and I'm going to tell him, doesn't really resonate?
You know, I'll be honest with you, I think we've crossed a little bit of a Rubicon when it comes to campaign commercials. I don't think people pay as much attention to them as they used to. The real question is, are you going to vote or not vote? Are you motivated to vote or not? People aren't happy with Obama, and those who like Obama aren't thrilled with him, so they're not motivated to get out and vote. And I think the commercials increasingly are being supplanted by other messengers, social media, people, your friends, neighbors, and relatives, and what they say. So the traditional commercial makes lots of profits for campaign consultants, but I'm not sure how many actual voters it moves anymore.
Talk about the desperation of the Democrats right now, and how it's manifesting itself.
Well, the commercials have just become hysterical. I mean, you have in Mark Pryor in Arkansas, he's blaming his opponent, Congressman Tom Cotton, for voting against funding that could bring the Ebola virus to light in the United States.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, at some point, you have to ask yourself, who writes these ads? I mean, I call it the staph infection. You know, consultants either do cookie cutter ads, you know, war on women, you know, liberal, 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 or when they come up with new ideas, they're preposterous. Yeah,
no, that's the staph infection. Not to make light of the Ebola situation, but certainly staph, pun intended there. So let's talk a little bit about Hillary. There's a report out today on Fox News quoting a former State Department official that she had her people sanitize the documents before handing it over to the official Benghazi investigators, the ones who did that quote-unquote independent report. The hearings are starting. You know, you'd think that elections usually aren't about foreign policy, but with everything that's going on in the world, ISIS, Russia, Benghazi hearings starting, before we even ask you about looking ahead to 2016, does this all resonate and spell bad news for the Democrats?
I don't think Benghazi resonates yet.
Okay.
I think we're going to be, I need more revelations.
Yeah, okay.
What really resonates is we're back at war. And for a lot of people, that's very disconcerting. we were told we won or at least drew the last wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
He was the no more war candidate.
And that we got out with
Yeah,
our dignity
successfully,
intact.
yeah.
Well, that obviously didn't work out. So I think the American people don't like chaos and confusion overseas. They may not know the details, but they're worried that we could get drawn in deeper and that there's no clear plan. And even after the president's speech last week, they're worried there's no clear plan.
Yeah, especially when the president says that ISIS or ISIL isn't Islamic and isn't a state. You know, if you're claiming that ISIS is not Islamic, and the stated reason is because no religion would condone killing of innocents, well then neither is Al-Qaeda Islamic, neither is Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them are. And by the way, I'm Jewish. There were 60,000 ways to practice Judaism. Christianity, just on the headings alone, you know, there were different faiths within Christianity. So who's Obama to stand there and say that Islam isn't interpreted differently by different groups, and the ones who interpret it that you kill the infidel and chop their heads off are, in a sense, just as legitimate in their own minds as anybody else?
If you don't call the enemy by its real name, you're not going to bring the American people or a worldwide coalition together. You're fighting something amorphous. People don't know exactly what they're fighting. They're fighting extremism. Well, fine, but what is motivating the extremists? What do they believe in? What do we have to counteract? What ideas do we have to discredit?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't identify the enemy if you don't show and admit who the enemy are and don't educate the American people, they're not going to be behind you as much as they would be, although I think the American public will be behind the strike against ISIS, whatever it turns out to be. Your book, which is, of course, Obama's enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, when he went to Ferguson and did what he did, and all of his acts in Ferguson, I mean, it was so par for the course, but it was so outrageous by historical standards, because no attorney general has ever acted that way. We don't know what happened to that shooting. We have no idea. A grand jury is being impaneled. He goes down and he says, basically, I have a personal stake in this because I'm black.
You know, I disagree with what he said, but, you know, it was a volatile situation there, and maybe he did a little bit of help. What does worry me is this. If there is no indictment of the police officer by the relevant county prosecutor, who happens to be a Democrat, and the federal government moves forward with a civil rights violation, I think that stirs up Rodney King problems. You know, either or if he is indicted and the feds also go after him, that's double jeopardy again. So I worry about what the Justice Department actually does and whether or not it won't be tainted with politics, or like in the George Zimmerman case. Now, they didn't charge him. They never charged George Zimmerman. But they did everything. The feds, yeah. Yeah, but the feds. But they did everything but. And
Isn't that still open, by the way?
Yes, it's still open.
Yeah.
He could still be charged.
Which is really kind of unfair to Zimmerman. I mean, how much time do you need to find out? It's been over a year.
He's had a checkered career.
Yes,
but I will say this. Lots of people would be all messed up in their mind if they had that constant fear hanging over them.
It's not like the Justice Department could use what's happened after the trial to go after him for that. So it's kind of irrelevant.
That's what you're being prosecuted for what you're being prosecuted for, not for your character, not for your entire life.
There was, and I don't want to put you on the spot because I don't know, but there was a decision that in one particular state. Why am I thinking Louisiana? Maybe I'm wrong. The voting voter ID is going to be honored. Wisconsin, sorry, starting this November.
Once again, the federal government's position on voter ID has been found wanting by a federal court. This is a pattern that has happened in South Carolina. It's happened in Georgia. It's happened in lots of states. And Eric Holder, like Captain Ahab chasing the great whale, continues to believe that voter ID is some kind of Jim Crow effort to suppress voters, when actually voter turnout in states that have the toughest voter ID laws for minority voters, voter turnout has gone up, not down, after voter ID.
And even minorities, and when they're polled, they favor voter ID.
By 2 to 1. But, you know, like a lot of liberals know better what people need and deserve than they themselves do.
Just like Obamacare, we're too stupid to know that the old policies we had were not good enough. They were phony policies, and now we need Obamacare to the rescue.
Right. You just have to believe.
Right. How much more damage? We have a minute. We know that Obama keeps saying, I have a pen. He has 2.5 years left almost, I fear. Well, how much more damage could Holder do?
Well, after November, neither Obama nor any Democrat in Congress will be facing the voters again while
Right.
Obama's in office.
Right.
So I fear that you can get an awful lot done through executive orders, and the courts may catch up eventually with
Eventually,
them,
yeah.
but that takes time.
Yeah.
And look, it took 2 years to get rid of those decisions at the National Labor Relations Board. They
Right.
were the law of the land for
Yep.
2 years. And again, you can't trust. We now know that Obama Democrats have appointed a majority of the appeals court, so you can't even count on the courts all the time.
John, great to see you, sir.
Thank you. A
Always
pleasure.
great to see you. All right, folks, John Fund, Newsmax contributor and national affairs columnist for National Review. Don't forget the book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. And there it is. And his article, The Increasing Desperation of Democrats. Check that out. Up next, Give Me 5. Don't go away.